Welcome to SoCal Surf with Dan Nappy. Well, today Newport Beach was breaking by the pier and on up to the higher numbers as well. So it was pretty good. A little choppy, a little bumpy, and also it was what I like to call stormy conditions where you have one wave after the other. So getting out past the first, I'd say 50 yards, one after the other, jumping over waves or diving under them and just going. You can mostly walk out about halfway, so you aren't paddling as much, but you have to jump over. And once you get out there a little ways and start paddling, you can get outside pretty quick. And there was some good sets that came through, good size. A little choppy, like I said, but not too bad. The interesting thing today was one of the guys who was supposed to come with us didn't show up. And so we had too many boards, and we didn't want to leave it in the truck because it wasn't by the pier. It was out. We parked on one of the numbered streets. I think it was 29. And so what we had to do is I put my little board inside the truck. It was a four-door truck, so it had plenty of room. So I stuck my little board in there, and I took one of the bigger boards. And so for me, getting back on a longboard after a year was interesting. And so I did that, and we walked, and there's so many little things that you realize. Longboards are much heavier. They're longer. They're harder to carry. I couldn't barely get my arm around it, so I carried it on my head or my shoulder, and my arm and my shoulder got tired pretty quick, and my left shoulder's sore, so I couldn't carry it on that one very long. And so it's a lot more work to carry a longboard down to the beach. I forgot. I didn't really forget. I just never liked that part of it. But the shorter, smaller boards are so much easier to carry. It's like nothing. And so I had to take a longboard out there. And so it took me a wave or two to get used to that because you can't turn like you can on a short board. You have to move your feet more. And so I took off and it just wouldn't turn. So I had to step back on the tail just to turn it to get it to go. I think I was going left on the first wave. And I dropped down and got it to turn left and then kind of moved up a little bit on the board, a couple of steps, and then it trimmed out a little bit, and then I pulled out of it. So it took a wave or two to get used to that. And after I got used to it, the good thing is you can catch we can catch a wave earlier, I guess is what I'm saying. You don't have to catch it when it's so steep and starting to turn wide at the top. And so getting up, you don't have to get up as quick. So you have a little more time, but the drawback is it turns real slow. And I got a wave and I was standing on the back. It was pretty steep. So I had to put my foot back far, and I turned as I was standing up. I turned on the top of the wave and then started to drop down, going left again. And so I moved my feet a little bit further forward, and I was able to trim the wave out. And then it looked like it was fading out, so I had to step back and cut back towards the shore, and then roll off the bottom again and get back into the wave. So I got a pretty long ride, but it's a lot. It's almost like surfing in slow motion, like the camera slowed down and your movements are all very slow and deliberate. But again, still fun. I would have rather had my shorter board because the surf was getting pretty good there towards the end. There was some peaks and they were good size. For Newport, anything over, waist high to shoulder is pretty good. And there were a lot of those coming through. Then occasionally one might come through that was head high. But on the bigger board, I wasn't comfortable with it enough to take those because I tried to take one of those. And as I stood up, I couldn't get the nose to come up. And it just went straight down and the board went straight into the water. And I went straight forward over the front and just, didn't dive. But I kind of did a belly flop because so much shallower at Newport, you really can't dive in. So I kind of belly flopped and the wave kind of rolled me around a little bit, which is not a big deal. Again, at Newport, the waves are a lot smaller and weaker. But good enough that it pushed me around. So I had a couple of those where I couldn't get the nose around. So, but, the wave count at Newport is so much higher because you catch so many more waves than you do at Huntington. There was a lot of kids there at first. From the high school. There's a different school that goes there. They looked high school to junior high to high school, I think. And I'm not sure which school it is, but they were there, and there was quite a few little kids. But they leave at about 8, so it started to thin out, and by 8:15, 8:30, there was no one there. So from 8:30 to 9, you go after any wave you want. And there wasn't very many people there. That's the thing at Newport, when it starts to break, nobody knows about it for a day or so. And I think it's just going to be today. I don't think it's going to break there tomorrow. It's just a little swell that came through that we happened to catch it. So, good day at the pier there in Newport. There was a current that drug us north towards the rocks, and we were constantly paddling. Twice I paddled back up, but that was exhausting. So it was the third time I got out and walked back up towards the pier, up towards Blackie's, and got in the water toward the middle there. And I was able to stay there pretty good. It seemed like the current got a little stronger towards the rocks. And not only was it going north, it was going out, so you're constantly paddling in and over. But towards the middle, I seemed to have less work to stay in the middle between the pier and the rocks. And eventually everybody else kind of caught up and worked their way south, so we were all back together. But we had two rookies there, and they were catching a lot more waves than they would have at Huntington, and so they had a lot more fun. They were on longboards as well, and so it makes it easier at Newport, I think, to surf if you have a little longer board. And I was on this. I did bring the 7-footer, even though I didn't get to use it. The 6-footer probably would have worked today, but it would be a lot easier with the 7-footer for me. That would have been, I think, the perfect size for today, the 7-footer. And those guys had longboards as well as I, and they were catching a lot of waves. So the longboarders were doing well there today as well. So the really short boarders, not as much, because they weren't strong enough to pick them up. They had to catch the wave pretty steep, and a lot of them didn't have a lot of corners, so you'd catch it, but then you wouldn't have anywhere to go. You'd have to get out of the way pretty quick before you got tumbled or just closed out and you had to just peel off. So pretty good surf day, nice sunny day. The water warmed up to 68. That's fantastic. That's very close to 70, which is ideal. Got a little warm there, actually, with the wetsuits. I had to dunk down in the water a couple times just to cool off because the sun was baking me in that wetsuit. So all in all, pretty good day. Great surf. No tragedies. No one had to be saved or rescued like last time, so it went pretty good. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see what Newport looks like tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be breaking. We might be back at Huntington. But we shall see. You never know. Ocean does what it wants. Thanks for listening. Check out our sponsors, nappyclothing.com, merchhero.com, taskbullet.com, and Swing Easy Hammocks. Thanks. See you soon. Bye.